Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It be Friday, and therefore, it's Khyber Shards Answers. And this auspicious Friday, we are joined by Eric. Hey, buddy.
Howdy, y'all. Didn't see you there. Come on
I know,
in.
right? How are you doing, Eric?
Good. We got blue light now. And the
I see
guitar's
that.
on the wall.
Yeah, there's blue light. You won't be able to sleep.
Right?
That's how it works, right?
When they first started reporting that back in like 2008, I absolutely thought that was the case. I was like, oh, well, my DVD player has a red light on it, so that's not a problem as long as it's
So
off.
it's all good.
Yeah, I'm good. Just chilling, vibing in Stormreach, having a great time. Ari's fine. Everything's fine.
Totally.
How are
Everything's golden. Yeah. Everything's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, something I've been wondering about. Last KSA, Colin and I had a conversation about the sympatheticness or lack thereof of good old Tommel. You are someone who, like me, crafts a lot of villains because you run much D&D. So what is your approach to trying to make a villain engaging and possibly sympathetic?
Yeah, I think I may have given up on the sympathetic track because I've tried a lot. And in my experience, not just with like you as a player or specifically like the Eberron Renewed crew, but like D&D TTRPG players get really entrenched really quick. And so it's hard to make a villain that is truly sympathetic, like that you feel bad that you have to fight. Because when I think of sympathetic villains, that's what I think to, of a villain that you don't want to take down. And a lot, in my experience, TTRPG players look forward to bringing their enemy low, not in a psychopathic way, just in a narratively satisfying way. And so keeping villains engaging, I think if they have interesting motivations or motivations that the players go like, oh, that's interesting, is about the closest I'm going to get to true sympathy, is if they find it interesting what their motivations are. Because I think, and coming out of Colin's KSA, I had a question I wanted to ask you that once I'm done with my answer, we can jump to. We're not in a writer's room. We don't have the opportunity to like craft every line and every engagement to be perfect's the wrong word, but keep the same track that we want the whole time with a villain. And
wait, are you not getting the scripts?
Right. No wonder I've been so off. And so I'm trying to think of a villain I've done recently that I've tried to have be sympathetic, because I have antagonists, like people that stand against the party, and that might be a better term to use, because I think that in Eberron Renewed, I've thrown you all up against, I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory, but somebody that was an ally of the party for a very long time, and then circumstances created a situation where she was actually fighting the party. But she's not a villain. She's just the party has fallen out of alignment. And so I think that's, if I want to create a interesting common encounter with somebody, then a lot of times it will be an ally, don't even say former ally, just an ally who has a different approach or a different mindset over a specific thing where the party can come into conflict, as opposed to a villain that's sympathetic, which I think is very difficult.
I have found that on the few occasions where I think I've really gotten sympathy from the party for antagonists, it's usually been an antagonist who isn't there by choice. The example I thought of, just because I have a friend who's working his way through Khyber Shards, and he texted me about it earlier. In Blackbriar, the giant crocodile I set this giant crocodile in there as a fun fight that was potentially going to be a great ambush. And immediately it was, oh, well, I'll talk to animals. And so you talk to it and we'll figure out what it wants, and then we'll give it what it wants, and then we don't have to fight it. And so if you, I find that a lot of times if you make a villain or make an adversary actually sympathetic, then the players will just find a way not to fight that adversary, and so it becomes very hard to force a conflict without just railroading it with a truly sympathetic villain. Unless, I guess, to use an Eberron Renewed example, we fought someone who was transformed into a monster. That person wasn't necessarily a good guy to begin with, and they did make choices that led them, but they didn't choose to become a monster exactly. And so there's that kind of thing. You see that a lot in comic books. But that's it is. It's very hard to get a villain who's sympathetic on them. It's hard to create a Magneto. It's hard to create a villain who's sympathetic on the merits of their argument, because the nature of this being a game, the players want to take down the bad guy.
Well, and once you get beyond, to your point, level 6 or 7 in D&D, because of the nature of the spellcasting system, if we don't want to fight someone, we don't have to. Like, there's too many solutions at level 12 to like default to combat. Because we could talk to the animals, talk to the plants, just, make them disappear and be like, okay, like, it's just like, if we don't want to fight you, we're not going to fight you. My question to you, centering around the Tommel discussion that happened last week between you and Colin, and I had the question watching that episode, is at what point, because I have a pretty clear point in my mind, but I'm interested to hear your perspective. What point did you realize Tommel was lost to the party, that the party no longer had any interest in saving Tommel, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it?
I think we were pretty close to that point at the end of the encounter where you guys turned over the map. I think we were very close to that, because Tommel wasn't apologetic. Tommel wasn't remorseful in any way. I think the only redeeming aspect of that scene was that he really did hold up his end of the bargain. Like, he didn't try to double cross you guys or anything like, or force something new out of it or anything like that. It really was, you hand me this and we're done. Okay, we're good. I think it was absolutely the point of no return when you guys met him again after the transformation. Like, I think the watch party, when you guys fought him under the city, I think the watch party still found him sympathetic because he didn't want you guys just murdered outright.
Yes.
But at the same time, it wasn't like he turned and tried to save you or something like that. And I mean, like everything you do when you're running D&D, I have thought of ways I might have treated that encounter differently with hindsight, that might have led to some other interesting directions. But I think that's kind of been the point to me at which I was like, okay, they're not trying to win Tommel back anymore. Like, at this point, it's Tommel's just a threat to the life that they have, and they're not going to try to be winning Tommel back, which is what made the fact that you guys decided to resurrect him so interesting, because it was a purely utilitarian thing, and now you're stuck with this person that you don't really want around anymore, but none of you are cold enough to just, okay, now we murder him again. Like, to just bring somebody back and then kill him again. Like, that's so that's a very interesting scenario, and it's probably one of the loose ends I'm least certain of how that's gonna where that's headed, because it can't be we just keep him perpetually locked in a dark windowless room, because you're also not monsters.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a really weird situation. I don't think I've ever been in a campaign where the party is the one who brought a slain enemy back to life.
Yeah. And I think you could definitely feel from the three of us that it was the last thing any of us wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was that utility thing. And to my mind, and I think it's really interesting because if I recall correctly, and if I don't, feel free to correct me,
Hmm.
pull back the curtain a little bit. The conversation leading into the map job where we met up with
Hmm.
Tommel, if I recall correctly, I think there was some kind of technical malfunction where we had to redo that conversation. Not the whole
Might have
episode, but
been.
like there was something where we had to re-role play that conversation. And that might be incorrect, but that's my recollection. And the first time, the way Tommel did his veiled threat didn't strike an exposed nerve with the party. It was very like, we don't want to do this, but whatever, fine.
Hmm.
And the second time we role played it, something about the wording that you shifted to make it like, I don't know if it was more overtly about the kids or something about the Rub and Warren gang, that all of us were just like, wow, like, okay, cool. Because I have a memory of the second time around it being a much worse conversation. um, and I feel like that point is where Tomo lost at least half the party, was like
Hmm.
willingness, like, because even if you're in a situation where you have to get this done, like Mirren's not putting a sword to your throat and saying threaten children kind of thing.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that
Right.
that was the point where for a lot of the players, especially, I think it was like, forget this guy, and the characters kind of went on that journey. But I definitely think Under the City is where Ari really lost a lot of hope, and then
Yeah.
the Sagwin attack was like the final nail in the coffin. I think
Hmm.
there was still a sliver of maybe we can pull him out because of that unwillingness to outright murder us and stuff. But
Yeah.
once you take out Greg, there's just that's too far. But I mean, I really think that, like, because I think you hear it in the conversations with Tommel, is like, we keep bringing up the kid stuff, like we keep,
Yeah.
and I think that always just stuck with the player characters of like, you don't got to threaten kids, like
Hmm.
you don't ever have to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, yeah,
Well, I think there's a transition. I think initially the way the party maybe thought about Tommel was, here's someone like us who's gone through something really hard, and it has hardened him in this way
yeah,
that makes that. But maybe you can come back from that sort of thing. Obviously. I think there's a point at which you guys start to realize that's not exactly what this is. What
yeah,
you've got is a cultist, and you guys are, as characters, not really equipped for deprogramming someone.
yes, yes.
Right.
That is very true. Yeah, I think it's the difference between going up against somebody that's in the Brotherhood of Mutants, to
Mm-hmm.
borrow the comic books term, versus somebody that is a follower of Apocalypse. Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
an ideological difference versus, no, this person's been
I don't know
brainwashed.
where you're getting those analogies, Eric.
Uh-huh.
What is that? Apocalypse? Who is this Apocalypse character?
Hey, I didn't make any, Oscar Isaac in the movie,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Um,
it's the Egyptian themed one,
the
right?
the
Oh,
the
wait, he's done that
definitive,
twice.
yeah. No, but I was just interested from your perspective of what point
Yeah.
you really felt like the party had given up on Tommel.
Yeah.
Because
I
it's
thought
been
it
interesting
I
to see
kind of
that
thought it was
evolution.
after the underground fight, because I know you
Yeah,
guys kind of went into the underground fight with still kind of hoping we'll talk him down, and
yeah,
that seemed kind of gone after the fight in Kulsir's tomb.
yeah.
So yeah.
Um, Sad, would have really
It
liked
is.
Tommel to. And I have no idea. I'm with you. I have no idea what we're gonna do with the man once,
Mm-hmm.
like, the campaign ends. It's like, because there's not a prison we can. I mean,
Right.
look into what fees for the Dreadhold are, I guess.
Right.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a handful of questions, and the first is for you. What would you say? Certainly, what would you say Kara has gossiped about more: the construct in Thora's office, or the weird vibes in Ari's room? And what's her theory for each of them, if any?
yeah, I love this question because I want to think that Kara would be above obsessing about the vibes, but at the same time, she absolutely would not be above obsessing about the vibes in Ari's room. I think the construct is. I think in Kara's mind, the construct is a legitimate threat. Like it's something scary. It's very sharp, very pointy, and the strike force came back a little different. Like I think all three of the player characters showed up at the school and were not playing around at all. It was like get inside, stay inside, don't go anywhere. Which, as a kid, when the adults start acting differently and really serious, that's horrifying. It's like, especially the ones that are normally kind of fun and more relaxed. And so I think the construct is something that's actually a topic that Kara tries to avoid because it's terrifying. And I think for the way that we had kind of pitched our characters, Kara is the most world weary between Pip and it's not Nardily, that's the drow.
Narissa.
Narissa.
Yeah.
Between the three student characters, like Kara is the most world weary, and so I think that she would have developed a naturally like protective edge to be like, let's talk about the weird vibes so that we don't think about the horrifying death machine in Thor's office. And the theory with the construct is that it's nothing good and probably something very serious that the strike force is trying to deal with. And that probably means that it's
not Narissa.
Nasaria.
Narissa's an NPC in my home game. That's where that came from.
But so I think Kara understands the construct is something dangerous and seems to be a bestial construct, which means it's probably for attacking people.
Yeah.
But the strike force has killed lots of things that attack them. So what's different about this? And Kara doesn't want to think about that. The weird vibes in Ari's room. Boy, I don't know what Kara's theory for it would be, because as Eric the player, I know what it is.
Right.
But I don't think there's any realm of possibility. Well, no, because Puzzle Dust did not keep his mouth shut to anybody in the school. So they know that Shade and Ari kissed. So I guess, it would be something about that. Curious. I mean, Kara was focused on Ari, so and Shade was up top on the roof. Kara might have thought that Shade was sneaking into Ari's room while she was going to wake Ari up, and was like, Shade was coming in there and acted really weird that I was in there, and so I don't know why she was coming in there, but and so that's probably what they would have landed on, is that Shade was sneaking into Ari's room while Kara was going to wake Ari up. And so that's probably where it would have landed the discussion. There's the theory.
There you go.
Took me a while to get there.
Second question is about the rules of arm wrestling at the Wavecrest Tavern, which I have been reminded by the book is titled The Tournament of Might, which is great. The question is magic usually allowed at the Wavecrest arm wrestling matches? If it is there typically any regulation on the magic allowed? Likewise, how is cheating usually handled, magic or otherwise? So I looked up the rules for the arm wrestling in the Wavecrest Tavern because the City of Stormreach book is, of course, from 3.5, and 3.5 had rules for everything, including a very lengthy system for tactical arm wrestling. Amusingly, the rules for arm wrestling at the Wavecrest Tavern do not mention magic at all. So
Wild.
I would assume that somehow it's allowed. I would say there probably is some regulation in that you wouldn't be allowed to use magic on your opponent. Like you couldn't fireball your opponent.
Fireball. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You couldn't just attack your opponent with magic. But it kind of seems like there would be some magic allowed. And thinking on it, I can kind of see how that would be an attraction, because how hilarious would it be to have someone, to have Hular arm wrestle someone who's a druid who's wild shaped into a giant ape. Like that'd be an awesome arm wrestling match.
Yeah.
So apparently it's not cheating. Now, what Dane and this guy were doing was obviously not an official Wavecrest arm wrestling match, because that happens once a week at the Tournament of Might. And there's rules and a large payout. You win 10 gold and free drinks for the rest of the night. And Eric and I were just discussing the totally insane economy of D&D. I imagine that Stormreach's economy, by the way, is particularly screwy because it's such an adventurer's town. And so the inflation of adventurers coming back from the jungle with years income and just being willing to spend it. As much as Stormreach has the impression of a sort of Wild West frontier town, the presence of adventurers has got to make the cost of living insane.
I mean, if we assume that a gold coin weighs an ounce, like it's an ounce of gold, then finding a golden bust from an ancient, like giant sarcophagus would break an economy. Like if you find like it's just nonsense. Like why would you
or the economy of Stormreach is like the economy of a Caribbean resort town, where there's one economy for the adventurer tourists, and there's an entirely different economy for the people who work in the service industry, and are so much poorer.
But it's a much more stable economy.
None of it's appealing.
No, having precious metals be directly tradable as your form of currency sounds like a nightmare. But anyway.
I would assume that actual cheating, whatever that would look like, that any actual cheating would probably be handled by a bar fight breaking out, because it's a tavern, and it would be like someone cheating at cards in an Old West saloon. Everybody draws down and we go. So I would assume that would be an excellent opportunity to run a bar fight in your game. And there really are never enough opportunities to run a bar fight in your game.
I mean, if you get a belt of giant strength, you'll just own that tournament. You have like a 28 strength at that point. Like
until somebody polymorphs into a giant ape or a earth elemental.
Yeah, fair.
Or something crazy like that. Like there's got to be, the weekly tournament has got to be wild, because there have got to be people who spend their time working out what magical advantages they can acquire in order to win. Like that's got to be absolutely insane.
And then the next part over, you have the pure arm wrestling league that doesn't allow any magic. That it's like, no, for the love of the sport, the actual like strength, and and then some people are like, just let them use magic. Let's see what peak human performance can look like if we're allowed to augment it.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Emily asks, additionally, relatedly, Eric, regardless of it being cheating or not, would Ari ever use his mark to help him win an arm wrestling match, at least back when it was easy to hide?
Probably, like, because we flavored Ari's mark as being like mental manipulation and messing with people's minds, and Ari is always like, he's been less trepidatious because he's been going up against like super powerful things that want to kill him now. So But to win an arm wrestling match, probably not. I'm not going to go inside somebody's brain and jumble it just so Pog can win 10 gold. I'll give you 10 gold. Like, so no, probably Ari would not have used his mark to win an arm wrestling match just due to the nature. Ari would have no problem morally with it. Well, the moral implications of his mark, not the moral implications of cheating in an arm wrestling match. Ari's like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Ari seems mature enough to wonder what the long-term effects of mental manipulation, of magical mental manipulation, are.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
am I leaving permanent marks on your mind every time I go in?
Yep. Especially manipulating stuff. Like, I think detect thoughts and telepathy, he wasn't super, because it's just,
Sure.
opening up a channel. But yeah, once you start like messing with things, Ari's very like, so keep track of who Ari uses that stuff on, because that means he does not care.
Excellent. Well, that is our questions for today. Thank you to our viewers for submitting your questions. You can always submit those over on our Discord, the link to which you can find down below, along with links to our other social media and to the Geek Pantheon YouTube channel, where you can find videos from Eric about TTRPGs. There we go.
TPRTGs.
Sure, those things too. And a variety of other broadly nerdy topics. New episodes of Khyber Shards come out on Monday. New Khyber Shards answers are usually on Friday, but I'll be out of town next week, so we won't have one. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.